Today, we have two horror stories for you to fall asleep to, accompanied by relaxing rain sounds. Sleep tight. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the overgrown grounds of the abandoned psychiatric hospital. Dr. Sarah Evans stood at the edge of the forest, her breath forming wisps of mist in the chilly night air. She shivered, both from the cold and from the anticipation that prickled at the back of her neck. Steeling herself, Dr. Evans stepped forward, her footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of fallen leaves. The hospital loomed before her, its windows like empty eyes staring out into the darkness. Ivy clung to the crumbling walls, weaving intricate patterns of decay. As she approached the entrance, Dr. Evans felt a sense of unease settle over her like a heavy blanket. The door creaked open on rusted hinges, revealing a yawning blackness beyond. With a steadying breath, she crossed the threshold, stepping into the oppressive silence of the abandoned asylum. The air was thick with dust and decay, and the faint scent of mildew assaulted Dr. Evans's nostrils. She flicked on her flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness like a knife. Shadows danced on the walls, twisting and writhing like tortured souls. Dr. Evans moved deeper into the hospital, her footsteps echoing hollowly in the empty corridors. She passed door after door, each one sealed shut with layers of peeling paint and rusted locks. She paused at one door, her hand hovering over the handle, before steeling herself and pushing it open. The room beyond was shrouded in darkness, the only light coming from the beam of Dr. Evans's flashlight. She stepped inside, her heart pounding in her chest. The room was empty, save for a single rusted bed frame in the center. But as Dr. Evans turned to leave, she heard it. A soft whisper, barely audible over the sound of her own breathing. She froze, her blood turning to ice in her veins. "Sarah," the voice whispered, its tone plaintive and full of sorrow. Dr. Sarah Evans stumbled backward, her heart pounding in her chest like a frantic drum. The voice echoed in the darkness of the abandoned asylum, its ethereal quality sending shivers down her spine. She fought to steady her trembling hands, the flashlight in her grip casting erratic shadows on the decaying walls. For a moment, she stood frozen, her mind racing with 1,000 questions. Who was calling her name? What restless spirit lingered in this forsaken place, yearning for release? Dr. Evans's rational mind grappled with the inexplicable but deep within her. A primal instinct stirred, an instinct as old as time itself, whispering of unseen worlds and forgotten truths. With a deep breath, Dr. Evans forced herself to push forward, her footsteps echoing in the stillness of the abandoned corridors. Each step felt like a journey into the unknown, the weight of the hospital's tragic history bearing down on her with each passing moment. As she ventured deeper into the heart of the asylum, Dr. Evans's flashlight illuminated the remnants of lives once lived within these walls. Faded photographs adorned the peeling wallpaper, capturing moments of fleeting joy amidst the suffocating despair. She traced her fingers over the images, feeling the weight of the past pressing down on her like a heavy blanket. But it was the journals that captured her attention, the desperate pleas of tortured souls etched onto yellowed pages, their words a haunting echo of the suffering that had consumed them. Dr. Evans read with a mixture of fascination and horror, her heart aching for the lost souls who had called this place home. And all the while, the whispers followed her, a constant reminder of the restless spirits that lingered in the shadows. Dr. Evans felt their presence like a chill in the air, their sorrowful cries tugging at her soul. But she refused to be driven away by fear. She had come here seeking closure, and she would not leave until she had unraveled the mysteries of the asylum's dark past. With determination burning in her veins, Dr. Evans pressed on, her flashlight cutting through the darkness like a beacon of hope amidst the encroaching despair. She knew that the answers she sought lay buried deep within the bowels of the asylum, waiting to be discovered. And as she ventured further into the abyss, Dr. Evans could feel the weight of history pressing down on her like a heavy burden, threatening to consume her with its unrelenting grip. But she would not falter. She would not be swayed by the darkness that lurked in the shadows. For Dr. Sarah Evans was a seeker of truth, a guardian of forgotten memories destined to be brought to light. And with each step she took, she drew closer to uncovering the secrets that lay hidden within the heart of the asylum, where echoes of the past whispered of untold horrors yet to be revealed. Dr. Evans's footsteps echoed through the dimly lit corridors of the hospital, each one a testament to her unwavering determination. She moved with purpose, her senses heightened as she navigated the labyrinth of decaying walls and forgotten memories. The air hung heavy with the scent of mildew and decay, a suffocating reminder of the hospital's dark past. As she ventured deeper into the heart of the asylum, Dr. Evans couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Shadows danced on the walls, twisting and writhing like phantoms in the night. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind, seemed to whisper her name, sending shivers down her spine. But she pressed on, driven by a relentless need to uncover the truth. She moved from room to room, her flashlight cutting through the darkness like a beacon of hope in the night. Each new discovery only fueled her determination, pushing her ever closer to the heart of the mystery. And then, just as she was about to lose hope, she heard it. A soft whisper, barely audible over the sound of her own heartbeat. Dr. Evans froze, her breath catching in her throat as she strained to listen. "Sarah," the voice whispered, its tone plaintive and full of sorrow. The hairs on the back of Dr. Evans's neck stood on end as she turned toward the sound, her heart pounding in her chest. She moved slowly, cautiously, her flashlight trembling in her hand as she searched for the source of the voice. And then she saw it. A figure standing at the end of the corridor, bathed in the faint glow of her flashlight. Dr. Evans's breath caught in her throat as she stared into the face of the apparition, its features twisted in anguish. "Who are you?" Dr. Evans whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. The figure didn't reply, its eyes burning into hers with an intensity that sent a chill down her spine. And then, with a sudden burst of movement, it vanished into thin air, leaving nothing behind but the echo of its haunting presence. Dr. Evans stood rooted to the spot, her mind reeling. She had come here seeking closure, but now she found herself confronting something far more sinister. She knew then that she was not alone in the hospital, that there were forces at work beyond her understanding. But she refused to be deterred. With a steely resolve, Dr. Evans squared her shoulders and pressed on into the darkness, determined to uncover the truth no matter the cost. Dr. Evans's footsteps echoed softly in the empty corridors as she ventured deeper into the heart of the abandoned hospital. The oppressive silence weighed heavily on her shoulders, each step a reminder of the darkness that lurked within these walls. She moved with purpose, her senses alert for any sign of the spectral entities that haunted the asylum. The flickering beam of her flashlight danced over the decaying walls, casting long shadows that seemed to reach out for her. Dr. Evans felt a chill creep up her spine as she passed by rows of closed doors, each one a silent sentinel guarding the secrets of the past. With each passing moment, the whispers grew louder, filling the air with a cacophony of tortured voices. Dr. Evans strained to make out the words, her heart pounding in her chest. She felt as though she were walking through a nightmare, her every instinct screaming at her to turn back. But she refused to listen to the voice of doubt that gnawed at the edges of her mind. She had come here seeking answers, and she would not rest until she had uncovered the truth. As she rounded a corner, Dr. Evans's flashlight illuminated a doorway, bathed in a sickly yellow light. Intrigued, she approached cautiously, her pulse quickening with anticipation. Peering inside, she saw a small room bathed in an eerie glow, its walls adorned with faded murals and crumbling mosaics. In the center of the room stood a rusted bed frame, its twisted metal a stark reminder of the suffering that had taken place within these walls. Dr. Evans approached slowly, her heart heavy with sorrow. She could almost hear the echoes of the past, the anguished cries of the patients who'd once called this place home. But as she reached out to touch the bed frame, a sudden gust of wind extinguished her flashlight, plunging the room into darkness. Dr. Evans gasped, her heart racing as she fumbled for her lighter. With trembling hands, she managed to relight the flame, the small flicker of light casting long shadows on the walls. And then, in the flickering light, she saw it, a figure standing at the foot of the bed, his features obscured by the darkness. Dr. Evans's breath caught in her throat as she stared into the empty void where its eyes should have been. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. But the figure said nothing, its presence a silent reminder of the horrors that had taken place within these walls. Dr. Evans felt a chill run down her spine as she backed away slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew then that she was not alone in the hospital, that there were forces at work beyond her understanding. And as the whispers grew louder, Dr. Evans knew that she was running out of time. Dr. Evans's pulse raced as she retreated from the mysterious figure in the darkness, her mind swirling with fear and uncertainty. She could feel its gaze following her, a weighty presence that seemed to linger in the air long after it had vanished from sight. With each step she took, the whispers grew louder, their insistent voices clawing at the edges of her consciousness. Determined to confront whatever lurked in the shadows, Dr. Evans steeled herself and pressed forward, her heart pounding in her chest. She moved with purpose, her flashlight cutting through the darkness like a beacon of hope in the night. With each step, she felt a growing sense of dread gnawing in the pit of her stomach, a primal instinct warning her of the danger that lay ahead. As she rounded a corner, Dr. Evans stumbled upon a narrow staircase leading down into the depths of the hospital. The air grew thick with the stench of decay, and the walls seemed to close in around her, suffocating her with their silent malevolence. With a steadying breath, she descended into the abyss, her footsteps echoing hollowly in the darkness. At the bottom of the staircase, Dr. Evans found herself standing in a vast, cavernous chamber, its walls lined with row upon row of empty hospital beds. The air was heavy with the weight of years gone by, and the silence was deafening in its intensity. Dr. Evans felt a chill run down her spine as she surveyed the scene before her mind racing with the possibilities of what horrors lay hidden in the shadows. And then, without warning, she heard it, a soft, plaintive cry echoing through the darkness, followed by the sound of shuffling footsteps. Dr. Evans's heart skipped a beat as she turned toward the sound, her flashlight casting wild shadows on the walls. What she saw sent a jolt of fear coursing through her veins. Standing before her was a figure cloaked in darkness, its features obscured by the shadows. Its eyes burned with an otherworldly light, and its voice was like a dagger in the night, cutting through the silence with its chilling intensity. "Who are you?" Dr. Evans whispered, her voice trembling with fear. The figure said nothing, its gaze piercing her soul with its intensity. Dr. Evans felt a shiver run down her spine as she took a cautious step forward, her senses on high alert. She knew then that she was standing on the precipice of something far greater than she could ever have imagined, and that the truth she sought lay just beyond her grasp. With a steady hand, Dr. Evans reached for her flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness like a sword. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever lay ahead, and stepped forward. Dr. Evans stood on the threshold of the unknown, her heart pounding in her chest as she faced the mysterious figure before her. The chamber seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, the air thick with the weight of untold secrets. With each passing moment, Dr. Evans felt the tendrils of fear tightening around her, threatening to drag her into the depths of despair. But she refused to give in to the darkness. With a steely resolve, She squared her shoulders and stepped forward, her flashlight casting a beam of light that cut through the shadows like a beacon of hope. As the light danced over the figure before her, Dr. Evans felt a surge of adrenaline course through her veins, driving away the suffocating grip of fear. "Who are you?" she repeated, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The figure remained silent, its eyes burning with an intensity that sent a shiver down Dr. Evans's spine. She felt a chill run down her spine as she studied the enigmatic figure before her, searching for any clue to its true nature. But try as she might, she could find no answers in its inscrutable gaze. With a frustrated sigh, Dr. Evans took a step closer, her footsteps echoing in the cavernous chamber. She could feel the weight of the figure's gaze upon her, like a physical presence pressing down upon her shoulders. But still, she pressed on, determined to uncover the truth no matter the cost. "What do you want from me?" she demanded, her voice echoing in the stillness. Again, the figure remained silent, its gaze unwavering. Dr. Evans felt a surge of frustration rising within her, threatening to consume her from within. She had come here seeking answers, and yet all she had found was silence. But as she stood there, bathed in the flickering light of her flashlight, something shifted within her. A flicker of understanding, a glimmer of insight. She realized then that the answers she sought lay not in the darkness that surrounded her, but within herself. With a newfound sense of determination, Dr. Evans turned and began to make her way back through the labyrinthine corridors of the hospital. The whispers still echoed in her mind, but now they sounded different somehow. Softer, gentler, as though they were guiding her toward the truth. And as she walked, Dr. Evans felt a sense of peace settle over her, like a warm embrace in the cold darkness. She knew then that she was not alone, that the spirits of the past were watching over her, guiding her toward her destiny. And with that knowledge, she pressed on, her heart filled with hope and determination. For she knew that no matter what trials lay ahead, she would face them with courage and resilience, and emerge victorious in the end. The envelope arrived on a mist-laden morning, its edges frayed with age and its seal stamped with an ornate insignia. Dr. Eleanor Grayson, a woman of reason and skepticism, regarded it with a curious mix of apprehension and intrigue. She had spent her life unraveling the mysteries of the human mind, seeking rational explanations for the inexplicable, but this invitation seemed to beckon her towards something beyond the realm of logic. With trembling fingers, Eleanor broke the seal and withdrew the letter within. The parchment was yellowed with age, the ink faded but still legible. As she read the words scrawled upon it, a shiver ran down her spine, and she felt a chill settle in the pit of her stomach. "Dr. Grayson," the letter began, its tone formal yet tinged with an air of urgency. "You are cordially invited to investigate the mysteries of the abandoned asylum that lies shrouded in the mists of the countryside. Your reputation as a psychologist and your dedication to uncovering the truth precede you, and we believe that you are uniquely qualified to shed light on the darkness that lingers within its walls. Come if you dare, and uncover the secrets that have long been forgotten." Eleanor's brow furrowed as she read the words again, her mind racing with questions and doubts. Who had sent this invitation, and why had they chosen her? What mysteries awaited her within the abandoned asylum, and what secrets lay buried in its shadowy depths? Despite her rational nature, a spark of curiosity ignited within her, urging her to accept the invitation and embark on this journey into the unknown. As the mist enveloped her surroundings, Eleanor made her decision. She would accept the invitation and unravel the enigma of the abandoned asylum, no matter the cost. With a sense of determination coursing through her veins, she set out to prepare for the journey ahead, unaware of the darkness that awaited her on the other side. The fog hung heavy in the air as Dr. Eleanor Grayson's carriage rumbled along the winding road, the clop of the horse's hooves echoing ominously in the silence. Outside, the landscape was shrouded in a veil of mist, obscuring the path ahead and lending an eerie atmosphere to the journey. Despite the oppressive atmosphere, Eleanor's resolve remained unshaken as she drew nearer to her destination. As the carriage rolled to a stop before the imposing facade of the abandoned asylum, Eleanor's breath caught in her throat. The building loomed before her like a silent sentinel, its once grand architecture now marred by the ravages of time and neglect. Ivy crept like skeletal fingers up the crumbling walls, and broken windows stared out like empty eye sockets, betraying the building's long years of abandonment. With a mixture of trepidation and curiosity, Eleanor stepped out of the carriage and approached the asylum's entrance. The door creaked ominously on its rusted hinges as she pushed it open, revealing a cavernous interior cloaked in shadows. The air was heavy with the scent of decay, and Eleanor felt a chill creep down her spine as she crossed the threshold into the darkness beyond. Her footsteps echoed hollowly in the empty corridors as she ventured deeper into the asylum, her senses heightened by the oppressive silence. The dim light filtering through the broken windows cast long, twisting shadows that seemed to dance and sway with a life of their own. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind sent a shiver down Eleanor's spine. But still, she pressed on, driven by an insatiable curiosity to uncover the truth. As she explored the labyrinthine halls of the asylum, Eleanor's mind buzzed with questions. What horrors had transpired within these walls, and what secrets did they hold? With each step, she felt herself drawing closer to the answers she sought, but she also couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister lurked just beyond the reach of her senses. Watching, waiting. With her lantern held aloft to ward off the encroaching darkness, Eleanor continued her descent into the heart of the asylum, unaware of the malevolent forces that stirred in the shadows around her. Little did she know that her quest for truth would lead her to confront the darkest corners of the human psyche and the horrors that lie hidden within. The asylum loomed before Dr. Eleanor Grayson like a specter rising from the mist. Its once grand facade now a crumbling monument to madness. As she stepped through the wrought iron gates, a sense of unease settled over her like a heavy cloak. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the silence that hung over the abandoned grounds was broken only by the distant cry of a solitary raven. With each step she took, Eleanor felt as though she was stepping further into the heart of darkness itself. The asylum's walls, once white and gleaming, were now stained with the passage of time, their surfaces marred by cracks and graffiti that spoke of the chaos that had once reigned within. Undeterred by the ominous atmosphere, Eleanor pressed on, her footsteps echoing hollowly in the empty corridors. She moved with purpose, guided by a determination to uncover the truth behind the asylum's dark history. As she passed through each desolate room, she could almost feel the weight of the past pressing down upon her, the whispers of the forgotten echoing in her ears. It was in the asylum's archives that Eleanor found her first clue, a tattered journal hidden amongst a stack of dusty documents. As she flipped through its pages, she was met with the scribbled ramblings of a former patient, his words a chilling testament to the horrors that had unfolded within these walls. Driven by a sense of grim fascination, Eleanor continued her exploration, piecing together the fragments of the asylum's past like a puzzle whose final picture was too terrible to imagine. She learned of Dr. Isaac Blackwood, the asylum's former director, and his cruel experiments on the patients. Experiments born of a mind twisted by ambition and obsession. As the hours passed and the shadows lengthened, Eleanor found herself drawn deeper into the asylum's secrets, her rational mind warring with the rising tide of unease that threatened to consume her. But even as the darkness closed in around her, she refused to turn back, determined to uncover the truth no matter the cost. Little did she know that the true horror of the asylum had yet to reveal itself, lurking in the shadows like a predator biding its time. And as the night descended and the darkness swallowed her whole, Eleanor realized that some secrets were never meant to see the light of day. As Dr. Eleanor Grayson delved deeper into the asylum's secrets, a palpable sense of unease settled over her. The corridors seemed to twist and warp around her, the shadows dancing like specters in the flickering lamplight. But despite the growing sense of dread that gnawed at her insides, Eleanor pressed on, driven by a stubborn determination to uncover the truth. It was as she entered the asylum's decaying library that Eleanor felt the first whisper of something dark and sinister stirring in the air. The temperature plummeted, and an icy chill raced down her spine as she sensed a presence lurking in the shadows. With trepidation, Eleanor called out into the darkness, her voice echoing hollowly in the empty room. "Who's there?" she demanded, her heart pounding in her chest. At first, there was no response. Only the sound of her own rapid breaths filling the silence. But then, from the depths of the darkness, a figure emerged, a shadowy specter clad in tattered rags, its eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. Eleanor's breath caught in her throat as she beheld the apparition before her, its form flickering like a flame caught in a gust of wind. She knew in that instant that she was not alone, that the asylum's dark past had not been consigned to history, but lingered still, waiting to claim its next victim. "Dr. Grayson," the specter hissed, its voice a chilling whisper that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. "You dare to trespass upon my domain." Eleanor's mind raced as she struggled to make sense of the apparition before her. Was this the spirit of Dr. Isaac Blackwood, the asylum's former director, returned from beyond the grave to seek vengeance upon the living? But before she could ponder the question further, the specter advanced upon her with a speed that defied its ethereal form. Eleanor stumbled backward, her heart pounding in her chest, as she realized that she was no match for the malevolent spirit that now stood before her. With a surge of desperation, Eleanor called upon all of her courage and resolve, drawing upon the depths of her own inner strength to confront the darkness that threatened to consume her. For she knew that she could not turn back. Not now, when the truth lay so tantalizingly close within her grasp. And so, with a defiant glare and a steely resolve, Dr. Eleanor Grayson faced down the malevolent spirit of the asylum, knowing that her fate, and the fate of all who had suffered within its walls, hung in the balance. Dr. Eleanor Grayson stood her ground, her gaze locked with the malevolent spirit that loomed before her like a dark cloud on the horizon. The air crackled with tension as the two adversaries faced off, each keenly aware of the stakes of their confrontation. "You cannot stop me, Dr. Grayson," the specter hissed, its voice echoing through the empty corridors like the toll of a funeral bell. "I have existed long before you, and will continue long after you are gone." But Eleanor refused to be cowed by the spirit's menacing words. Drawing upon her years of study and experience, she summoned the full force of her intellect and willpower, steeling herself for the battle that lay ahead. "I will not let you harm anyone else," she declared, her voice steady despite the fear that threatened to consume her from within. "The atrocities committed in this asylum will not go unpunished, and I will see justice served no matter the cost." With a defiant glare, Eleanor squared her shoulders and prepared to face whatever horrors awaited her. But even as she braced herself for the onslaught, she knew that the true battle would not be fought with fists or weapons, but with cunning and determination. And so, with a flicker of her lamp and a resolute step forward, Eleanor plunged headlong into the heart of darkness, determined to confront the malevolent spirit that haunted the asylum's halls and uncover the truth that lay hidden within its shadowy depths. As she moved deeper into the labyrinthine corridors, Eleanor's senses were assaulted by a barrage of strange and unsettling sights and sounds. Shadows danced and twisted in the flickering lamplight, and whispers echoed in the darkness, their words too faint to decipher, but laden with a sense of menace. But even as the darkness closed in around her, Eleanor pressed on, her resolve unshakable. for she knew that the only way to defeat the malevolent spirit that haunted the asylum was to confront it head on, to shine a light into the darkest corners of its twisted soul and expose the truth that lay hidden within. And so, with each step she took and each obstacle she faced, Eleanor drew closer to the heart of the mystery, her determination burning like a beacon in the night. For she knew that the battle was far from over, and that only by confronting the darkness within herself could she hope to emerge victorious in the end. As Dr. Eleanor Grayson ventured deeper into the labyrinthine corridors of the asylum, the air grew heavy with the weight of the past, each step a testament to the horrors that had unfolded within its walls. But even as she braced herself for the final confrontation with the malevolent spirit that haunted the asylum, Eleanor remained steadfast in her determination to uncover the truth. At last, she reached the heart of the asylum, a chamber shrouded in darkness, its walls lined with rows of empty beds that bore silent witness to the suffering that had once taken place within its confines. In the center of the room stood a figure clad in tattered rags, its form flickering like a candle in the wind. Dr. Isaac Blackwood, the spirit of the asylum's former director, regarded Eleanor with eyes that burned with a malevolent fire, his voice a chilling whisper that sent shivers down her spine. "You cannot stop me, Dr. Grayson," he taunted, his voice echoing through the empty chamber like the toll of a funeral bell. "I am the darkness that lurks within the human soul, the shadow that haunts your every waking moment." But Eleanor refused to be cowed by the spirit's threats. Drawing upon the full force of her intellect and willpower, she confronted Dr. Blackwood with a steely resolve, her voice ringing out clear and strong in the darkness. "I know what you did here, Blackwood," she declared, her words carrying the weight of truth and justice. "The atrocities you committed in the name of science will not go unpunished, and I will see justice served, no matter the cost." With a flicker of her lamp, Eleanor illuminated the chamber, casting light into the darkest corners of Dr. Blackwood's twisted soul. And as the light washed over him, the malevolent spirit began to waver, its form flickering and fading like a candle on the verge of extinguishment. But even as Dr. Blackwood fought to maintain his hold on the darkness, Eleanor refused to back down. With each passing moment, she drew closer to the truth, unraveling the tangled web of lies and deceit that had shrouded the asylum's dark past for so long. And then, in a blinding flash of light, Dr. Blackwood was gone, his malevolent spirit banished from the asylum forever. In his place stood Eleanor, a beacon of hope in the darkness, her courage and determination shining like a guiding star in the night. With the malevolent spirit vanquished and the truth finally revealed, Eleanor emerged from the asylum's depths forever changed by her harrowing journey. But even as she left the crumbling building behind her, she knew that the shadows of the forgotten would always linger, a haunting reminder of the darkness that lurked within the human soul.